What happens when one of Hollywood's most revered icons, an actor whose name is practically carved into the foundation of cinema, sits down for what should have been a simple daytime interview, only to be blindsided by a host seemingly hungry for confrontation? Brace yourself. You're about to witness one of the most explosive moments ever broadcast on live television, an encounter so heated that the legendary Al Pacino walked off the set halfway through the show. But before we dive into this jaw-dropping clash, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and jump into the comments. Tell us, what's the wildest celebrity interview meltdown you've ever seen? Trust me, you'll want to share your thoughts once you see how this situation spirals, because what unfolds next is nothing short of unbelievable. It all began as an ordinary press appearance on The View, just another stop on the promotional circuit for Pacino, the man behind The Godfather, Scarface, Scent of a Woman, and countless cinematic triumphs. Now in his 80s, Pacino is known for his fiery artistic spirit, but also for his controlled, seasoned professionalism. After decades of interviews ranging from deep philosophical conversations to lighthearted morning show chatter, nothing could rattle him, or so everyone thought. But on this particular morning, something felt off from the moment he stepped onto the set. The usual friendly greetings felt strangely forced, and a quiet, unsettling tension lingered in the air. It was subtle, but it was there. Pacino felt it immediately, and then came Joy Behar. Known for her sharp humor and unfiltered political commentary, she seemed to have already decided the tone of the interview before a single camera even rolled. The shift became obvious the moment she leaned in with a smile that looked far more like a setup than a welcome. "So, Al," she began, voice syrupy yet pointed, "we'll talk about your new movie. But first, let's address your past work. Do you ever regret glamorizing violence in films like Scarface? Shouldn't Hollywood take responsibility for the impact it has on society?" Instant hook. Instant heat. And Pacino immediately sensed the ambush. Caught off guard by such an aggressive first question, he paused. His eyes narrowed in that unmistakable Pacino way, the look that says a storm is gathering behind the calm. "Well, Joy," he replied coolly, "that's quite a heavy question to start with. I've always believed cinema is about exploring humanity, including its darker corners. We're storytellers, not moral authorities." But Joy didn't give him a second to finish. She pushed harder. "Come on. You must realize young people idolized Tony Montana. Don't you feel any responsibility for that influence?" At this point, even the other hosts looked visibly uncomfortable. Their nervous glances made it clear this was not the interview anyone had prepared for. Whoopi Goldberg tried to intervene, gently steering the discussion toward Pacino's acting process. But Joy cut her off with a dismissive wave. "No, let him answer," she insisted, practically pouncing on the moment. "Al, you've profited enormously from these violent roles. Don't you think you owe the public some accountability?" Pacino's jaw tightened. His calm was thinning. "I owe the public nothing except honesty in my performances," he said, the edge in his voice unmistakable now. "If you want a thoughtful discussion about art and its cultural effects, I'm happy to have one. But let's not pretend that's what you're after here." "Oh, and what am I after?" Joy challenged, leaning forward. Pacino didn't flinch. "It seems to me you're more interested in creating a confrontation than having a conversation. After 5 decades in this business, I know the difference between an interview and an interrogation." The energy in the studio shifted immediately, so thick you could almost hear it crackle. Camera operators exchanged uncertain glances. The other hosts seemed to shrink into their seats, wishing they could disappear. But Joy wasn't finished. "Oh, so now I'm interrogating you?" she scoffed. "I'm asking legitimate questions. If you can't handle them, maybe this industry has passed you by." The room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. Pacino stared at her, quietly, steadily, for a long moment. And in that stillness, everyone watching knew something had fundamentally changed. This wasn't an uncomfortable interview anymore. This was a collision waiting to detonate. The interview was rapidly approaching a point of no return. "Listen, lady." Pacino's voice cut through the tension, low and commanding, carrying the weight of a career that has spanned decades. "I've been answering questions about my work long before you even started in television. There's a difference between asking a question and showing blatant disrespect." Joy's face flushed a deep red. "Disrespectful? For asking about the real-world impact of your films? That's literally my job, Al. Maybe in your insulated Hollywood bubble, everyone tells you how brilliant you are. Out here in the real world, we ask the tough questions, the ones that matter to people actually living outside of your movies." Pacino's eyebrows shot up, disbelief etched across his face. "So you believe sitting behind this desk makes you more in touch with reality than an artist who has spent 50 years chronicling lives, pain, and the human condition?" Joy snapped back instantly. "And frankly, I see a lot that's deeply problematic in the very films that built your career." The tension in the studio became almost unbearable. The other hosts scrambled to regain control, with Sarah Hyland attempting to pivot toward Pacino's upcoming projects. But Joy wouldn't let it go. "No, we are finishing this," she said sharply, cutting off Sarah mid-sentence with a dismissive gesture. "I am not finished, Al. You've been dodging my questions." Pacino's expression hardened, his legendary intensity starting to flare. "I have evaded nothing. Every question you've thrown at me, I've answered. The issue isn't evasion. It's that my answers aren't what you scripted in your head. Your questions are just polished Hollywood spin." Joy leaned forward, unrelenting. "Let me be clear. How do you sleep at night, knowing your romanticized portrayals of gangsters may have inspired real-life violence? How many lives have been affected because someone thought being Tony Montana was cool?" The accusation hit the studio like a bomb. Even in a show known for fiery debates, this felt unprecedented. Whoopi Goldberg looked horrified, and producers behind the scenes scrambled in panic. Pacino leaned back, tension coiled in every muscle. "That is not only unfair, Joy, it's deeply irresponsible," he said, his voice cutting like a blade. "You're holding me accountable for acts of violence I had nothing to do with. This isn't journalism, it's a public attack on my reputation." "Oh, so now I'm attacking your character?" Joy's laugh was sharp, icy. "I'm simply asking you to take responsibility for the shadow your work has cast. But perhaps that's too much to expect from a man who spent decades in his ivory tower." "Ivory tower?" For the first time, Pacino's temper broke through. His voice snapped with a whip-like intensity. "Lady, I grew up in the Bronx. I've seen real struggle. I do not treat that life as entertainment. Every character I've portrayed carried weight. Every story mattered. If you can't see that, you don't know what you're talking about." Joy jabbed her finger at him, unwavering. "Don't lecture me about understanding consequences, Al. I've seen the front lines of real life while you've been making fiction for a paycheck. And I know that movies like yours play a role in the chaos we see out there." The other hosts were now in a frantic scramble, unsure how to regain control. Someone tried to shift the conversation back to his craft, but Joy cut through like a predator. "We are having a vital conversation," she declared, locking eyes with Pacino. "This is exactly the kind of reckoning Hollywood elites need." "Beyond reproach?" Pacino's voice was low, dangerous, humming with barely restrained fury. "I've faced scrutiny my entire career and learned from it. But there's a universe of difference between honest critique and whatever this is. You walked in with a verdict, Joy, and you weren't interested in hearing a single word from me." "My only verdict is holding the powerful accountable," she shot back, her tone more courtroom than conversation. Pacino leaned forward, knuckles white as he gripped the chair. "You know nothing of my world. Nothing of the grit, the devotion, the respect I've poured into this craft. or the people who watch. You painted a picture of me before I even spoke. I painted it based on 50 years of your films, Joy replied, her words sharp as bullets, unflinching. The air in the studio was now electric. Every viewer at home could feel it. This was no longer an interview. This was a battle, one where reputations, legacies, and tempers were on the line. The confrontation was reaching its peak. The portrait I see, Pacino began, his voice low, growling with barely restrained fury, is of a man building a fortune by romanticizing everything fractured about masculinity in this nation. A heavy, suffocating silence fell over the studio, broken only by the faint clicks of cameras. Even the crew seemed frozen, witnessing what felt like an on-air dismantling of a living legend. Pacino shook his head slowly, his eyes narrowing as he continued. Joy, in all my time in this business, I've met every kind of person, the good, the bad, those just trying to get by. But I've rarely encountered anyone so consumed with the need to tear down another human being for their own ego. My ego? Joy's voice wavered ever so slightly, a crack in the facade, but she pressed on. This isn't about you, it's about accountability, a concept your generation seems to misunderstand. My generation? Pacino's eyes ignited with fire. My generation built this very industry, Joy. We told the stories, shouldered the risks, forged paths for every person who came after us. And you have the audacity to lecture me about accountability? Yes, she said defiantly, chin lifted. Because it's necessary. Someone has to ask the questions everyone else in Hollywood is too afraid to touch. Pacino let out a cold, humorless laugh. Challenging questions? You call ambushing me with baseless accusations about the world's ills challenging? That's not journalism, Joy. That's cruelty for sport. Attempts to defuse the situation were futile. Alyssa Farrah Griffin tried one last time to redirect with a question about his charity work, but Joy snapped back, eyes blazing. Do not change the subject. We are discussing the cultural footprint of violent media, and I demand to know why Al Pacino thinks he is exempt from that conversation. I am not exempt, Pacino replied, voice rising, muscles tense. I want an honest dialogue, but that's clearly the last thing you want. You've already convicted me in your mind. No truth I offer will ever penetrate your judgment. Joy pressed harder, painting him as the embodiment of Hollywood's darkest traits. Perhaps because what you symbolize is the rot at the core of this industry. The old guard, glorification of aggression, toxic masculinity, all wrapped in applause and golden statues. Pacino held her gaze, silent for a long, deliberate moment. Then, almost imperceptibly, the anger shifted into a calm, unnerving serenity. Joy, he said, voice measured yet piercing. I came here today to talk about my work, to share it with the audience. I've sat through thousands of interviews, always maintaining respect, even when the questions were sharp. But this is no longer an interview. This is a powerful man being challenged, and you seem to enjoy it. Joy smirked, convinced she had cornered him. This is a perfect example of the entitled attitude I've been describing, she said, confident. Pacino's expression, however, had changed. It was no longer fury, it was disappointment, deep and profound. Entitled, he repeated, tasting the word like poison. Joy, listen carefully. I've devoted my entire life to this craft. I've dissected every character, breathed their air, delivered truth in every role. I have never asked for preferential treatment, never demanded easy questions, never shied away from difficult conversations. But what you're doing right now, this is not journalism. It is public harassment. Harassment? Joy scoffed incredulously. For asking questions about your films? Oh, please, Joy, Pacino said, voice dropping lower, commanding every ounce of attention. This is what privilege looks like. The moment I face a real question, suddenly it's harassment. Let me educate you on what a real question sounds like. The room was electric, hanging on his words. Every camera, every microphone, every viewer at home could feel the tension snapping like a live wire. And in that charged silence, it was clear. This interview had crossed the threshold. This was no longer entertainment. This was history in the making. "You could have asked about my methods," Pacino began, his voice low but cutting through the tension like steel. "About the moral tightrope of portraying difficult men. About the responsibility I carry as an artist. About how I've evolved over decades. Instead, you launched a personal crusade, pinning society's demons on my chest for reasons that have nothing to do with me." The other hosts exchanged panicked glances. Whoopi Goldberg made a last-ditch attempt to steer the conversation toward calmer waters. "Al, perhaps we could shift to your new project," she suggested, voice tinged with hope. But Joy was relentless. "No," she snapped. "We are not changing the subject. I want an answer. Do you or do you not believe your films, steeped in conflict, have left a negative mark on our culture?" Pacino closed his eyes slowly, a deep weariness settling over his features. When he opened them again, the sorrow in his gaze was palpable. "Are you certain you want the answer to that question?" he asked, a hint of steel beneath the resignation. "Yes," Joy said, triumphant, as if she had cornered him. "Then here it is," he said, voice deliberate, resonant, heavy with decades of experience. "True art is a mirror held up to society. Sometimes that mirror reflects images we'd rather not face. The men I've portrayed are not heroes, they are cautionary tales. Tony Montana does not find happiness. He finds ruin. Michael Corleone does not discover peace. He discovers only profound emptiness. These are tragedies, not glamorized conclusions." Joy interrupted, unwilling to let him control the narrative. "But people don't perceive them that way." "Some don't," Pacino admitted, his patience thinning. "But that is not the failure of the art. That is the failure of those who choose to ignore the message. Should we stop telling difficult stories because some might misinterpret them? Should films only be about puppies and rainbows?" "Don't be absurd," Joy shot back. "I am not the one being absurd," Pacino said, voice hardening. "You are. You demand that I accept responsibility for how strangers interpret my work. That's like blaming Shakespeare for the dark deeds of those inspired by Macbeth." Joy's face flushed crimson. "Do not compare yourself to Shakespeare. That is exactly the arrogance I am speaking of." "I am not comparing myself to Shakespeare," Pacino said, the calm in his tone now brittle and dangerous. "I am making a point about artistic responsibility, a point you have no interest in understanding. Your only goal is attack." "I want honesty," Joy proclaimed, defiant. "Honesty," Pacino repeated, voice sharpening to a razor's edge. "You want honesty? I'll give you honesty. This is, without question, the most unprofessional interview I have ever endured. I have been treated with more courtesy by paparazzi hiding in bushes than by you in the studio today." "Oh, boo-hoo," Joy scoffed, dripping with mockery. "The great movie star isn't being treated like royalty. Welcome to the real world, Al." And that was the moment. The precise instant the studio collectively realized a line had been irrevocably crossed. Pacino rose slowly from his chair, a deliberate, measured movement that seemed to draw all the air from the room. "You know what, Joy?" he said, voice chilling in its calm authority. "I've been in this industry for over 50 years. I've collaborated with the greatest directors, actors, and writers across multiple generations. I've faced criticism from people who actually know the craft, and I've grown from it. But I have never, ever been subjected to such profound disrespect by someone calling herself a professional. If you can't handle the heat—" "I can handle it," Joy began, but Pacino raised a hand, silencing her. "No, you are finished speaking. I listened to you. Now you will listen to me. I came here as an invited guest with respect for this show and its audience. I came prepared to engage in a genuine conversation about my work, my life, and my experiences. Instead, you chose to use me as a target for whatever grievances you harbor against the entertainment industry. The studio fell into a tomb-like silence. Even Joy paused, momentarily paralyzed by the controlled fire in Pacino's voice. I don't know what filled your life with such bitterness, Pacino continued, measured and cutting. And frankly, I don't care. But I will not sit here and allow you to project it onto me. The tension was palpable, electric, a moment suspended in time, one that no viewer would ever forget. I have been nothing but professional, Pacino said, his voice calm but lethal in its control. And you have been nothing but hostile, and I am done with it. Joy scrambled, fury mixed with disbelief. So you're just going to walk away? Just like every other Hollywood prima donna who can't take a little criticism? Pacino smiled, but it was a cold, razor-thin smile stripped of warmth. Criticism? He said, his tone sharp as a blade. Is that what you call this, Joy? I've been critiqued by the sharpest minds in the world, and I cherished it because it forced me to improve. But this is not criticism. This is cruelty, and life is far too short to waste a single second on cruel people. He unclipped his microphone and panic rippled through the production crew. Al, please, Whoopi Goldberg pleaded. Don't leave, we can reset. Pacino turned to her, his expression softening with genuine warmth. Whoopi, you are a class act. Always have been. But I cannot continue. I will not continue. Joy, perhaps realizing the magnitude of her miscalculation, made a final, desperate attempt to assert control. Fine, she said sharply. Go on. Leave. Show the world what you're really made of. Pacino paused, microphone in hand, locking eyes on her one last time. You want to know what I'm made of? He said. I'm made of 50 years of relentless work, unwavering dedication, and profound respect for my craft and my colleagues. I'm made of thousands of hours of study, preparation, and pouring every ounce of myself into every role. I'm made of genuine love for the art of storytelling and for the people who watch our films. And I am made of enough self-respect to know when to walk away from someone who doesn't deserve another second of my time. With that, he handed the microphone to a stunned production assistant and turned toward the exit. This is live television, Al, Joy cried, desperation lacing her voice. You can't just walk out. Pacino stopped at the very edge of the set and turned back for one final piercing glance. Watch me, he said. And with those two words, one of Hollywood's most revered actors walked off the set of The View, leaving behind a stunned audience, mortified co-hosts, and a furious, red-faced Joy Behar, who had just learned the hard way what happens when you push a legend to their breaking point. The cameras continued rolling, capturing the chaos in real time, but no words could erase what had just happened. It was a masterclass in maintaining dignity under fire, and a stark reminder that respect is earned, not demanded. So, what's your verdict on this extraordinary confrontation? Have you ever witnessed a celebrity interview explode with this intensity? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more unbelievable true Hollywood stories like this one.